Oh, welcome to the Monday Show. That was a aeroplane flying around. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear that in just a second. Oh, that one wasn't very loud. What's up, everybody? It is July 20... just July 20, 2020, 20, 2020, 20, 2020, 20. July 20, 2020, 2020, 2020. Yeah, there we go. What's up? I hope everybody out there is having a glorious Monday in the world. And I got to give a shout out to the first people in the chat today. Frank Dominguez, number one. Number one in the charts. Number one in our hearts. Good to see you, Frank. I'm glad you seem to be doing well. From the smiley face emojis that you posted into the chat, it seems like you're doing well. It's good to see you. Yarden Cyphers, good to see you. Big D Smoke, Alyssa Bentley, Michael Sarr, Byron Volman, Mikey Fishy, Texas Andy Aquatics. Keep scrolling. Sci-Fi Swordsman, Glass City Fish Witch, Josh Modesti, Jessica Taylor, It's Nature Man, what's up, my guy, and Dave's Aquarium, and Chris John. Yeah, oh, got them all today. Not a ton of people in the chat. That's okay. It's Monday. I get it. Everybody out there having a case of the Mondays. Me too, don't worry. We're all having a case of the Mondays because it is Monday. So it's all good. First comment from the chat that I wanted to get to was Glass City Fish Witch says, hello, everyone. Going to lurk while packing to move. Yes, I am crazy. I bought a house during the pandemic. Now, I don't want to address the fact that you're packing and lurking. That's all fine and dandy. No one has any kind of question for that. But I would like to address the whether you're crazy or not to buy a house during the pandemic. Now, this 100% needs to be identified by not only this has to be identified by a lot of metrics, right? So you got to think, what was the price that you bought the house at? What is the area that you bought the house at? Is the market going to rise and where you're going to go move to? Blah, blah, blah. A lot of metrics. Does the house have the things that you need? Is it the upgrade? Is it a downgrade? Is the mortgage more? Is it less? There's a whole bunch of stuff that would go into that consideration. So I would say this. If you bought a house in a highly inflated market, that would be crazy. But if you bought in the moderate range or even below, I would say that's not crazy. But as long as if you're in a stable housing market, nothing crazy about buying a house. It's probably one of the only ways for economic upward movement in the United States in the year 2020, and probably for the next however long we're here in the United States. It would be, I can't really give people advice if you're in like the UK, if you're in Germany, if you're in New Zealand. It would be difficult for me to give house buying advice for that. But you're not crazy for buying a house in the pandemic. Everybody's got to live in a house, and hopefully everything works out. Tony Franzen, all the way over from Sweden. What's up, my guy? Chandra Sakar, Texas Andy, who I already said hi to. Matthew Lee, Dave... what is it? Dave's Aquariums? I already said hi to Dave's Aquariums. Where's the other Dave? There's another Dave in here. We got a lot of Daves going on. Dave Friesen. There you are. If I missed anybody, it's not on purpose. It's because the chat's scrolling by, and it's hard to read and talk and control the cameras and all that stuff all at the same time. It's not on purpose. But I see Steve Beartich. Beartich? Beartich. Beartich. Steven. What's up, my guy? Good to see you. It is Monday. It's pretty good. Things are going pretty well. No complaints around here. It is a hot Monday, as John Gonzalez says. Yes, it is a hot. The weather out here is starting to get heated. Supposed to be 92 or something like that today, which, if you live in an area like Texas, it's not that hot, and I get it. But just like every time you talk about whether or not it's cold, somebody from where they think is Antarctica will be like, that's not cold. It was negative 50 million below zero here last year. Okay. It's the same thing with the heat index. It will feel insanely hot here in Western Washington. By around 5 or 6 o'clock, it will be super hot. That's how it will feel. And that's just a reality of, like, if you say it's hot here, somebody in Louisiana would be like, that ain't hot. It's super hot in Louisiana. I'm like, okay. I get it's hot elsewhere. What I'm saying is it's hot here, and that's my perspective. And I always find that is like one of the funniest conversations to ever have with somebody. You know, it's like, is it hot here? Well, on the moon, there's no atmosphere. You know what I mean? It's just weird. It's just a weird thing to do that. But I guess it's a human nature thing to view what other people are saying without empathy. I think that's the knee-jerk reaction that we get from a lot of humans in the United States and around the world, that people aren't necessarily viewing everyone else with empathy. I think that would be my point of a Monday, because it's Monday. What's up? Alyssa Bentley says, I have one long-fin green dragon young female burst in with eggs. She won't let me catch her out and put her in with a willing male. So today, I'll be tearing a tank apart to try to help her out. I can relate to that. My super red bristlenose are impossible. They're impossible to catch. I managed to catch like 3 of them a little while ago, and I'm exaggerating here, but it was hours and hours and hours and hours trying to get them out of there. And I considered destroying the tank. Eventually, I got some ONIP tab and put them on the glass out by the front, and then I turned out the lights, and then I waited until I could, and I put the net in there also, so I let the net float in the tank so that psychologically they would think it was normal, right? Like, it's normal to have a net in here. There's always a net in here, right, guys? That's all good. Oh, but I've been caught. Yeah. Did it work? Probably about as exactly as well as just being patient, I think, you know? Yeah, I think just being patient would have been the deal. Big D Smoke says that's true because those that live in really hot places talk about how freezing cold it is when it hits 49. Yeah, it's weird. That's one of the weird things about being in Western Washington. It's like when it starts to get 90, 95 degrees, it's like overwhelming here. Whereas if I go to Eastern Washington, it's 100 degrees and it's like, yeah, it's super hot, but it's not that bad, you know. But I will say that the hot and cold here is weird. You don't have to hit like crazy high or crazy low numbers for it to just like blast into your body and make you feel miserable. It's like super easy for it to be 40 degrees out. Fahrenheit, whatever that is in Celsius, I don't know off the top of my head. And you feel like you're freezing to death. But yeah, that's the thing. And I'd be down in Texas or Arizona, and it's like 115 out, and it's not that bad. Texas Annie says exactly how you laughed when I said couldn't handle the winters. Said people put on clothes and build a fire. And how do you think it's crazy hot at 90? What I'm saying is that this part of the world doesn't need to reach the extreme temperatures for you to feel like it's extreme. That's what I'm saying. Is that if it hits 95 here, it feels like you might just die, you know. Whereas 95 in Texas is like, oh yeah, hey, cool. What up? What are we doing? I'm going jogging, you know. Yeah, so it's a little that's how weird it is, you know. Chris John, we have a break in the heat this week finally. Thankfully, a long week of heat advisory temps. Ooh, yeah. It's yeah, Daniel says 98 in New Jersey. Oof, that's ridiculous. I mean, realistically, it's go inside weather. I think, you know, that's just kind of the reality of the world, right? Tony's wondering, how is the garden going? I'm full swing of planning the fall winter garden. The garden is going it's going pretty well. Honestly, I uploaded a couple of those videos about the terrariums I was doing out there, and I'm guessing people are completely uninterested in those terrarium videos, so I guess I'll probably just keep doing those forever because I am having fun making them, so I'm going to keep making them. But it is very apparent that those are very unpopular as far as on my channel. And I think that the garden videos would fall into the exact same category as that. But I can say that the garden is going quite well. We are regularly harvesting all sorts of things. We just went through, our broccoli started to bolt, which those of you that don't garden, that means that it shot up and it's flowering and going to seed. So we cut some of the flowers. We'll harvest some of the seeds for next year. And then, but we had to pull all the stalks out and everything because all it was going to do is just be flowers for the rest of the year. We'll probably do another run of broccoli in the fall, I think. We might. I don't know. We're kind of torn whether we want to do beans or not. We have this weird growing season here where it does this long period of spring, and then all of a sudden we get these temperatures, which makes all of these plants suddenly freak out and go to flowering. So we're having to go through that right now. Like the spinach and the broccoli, all that kind of stuff is coming out. You know, we have a bunch of extra squash this year. Our snap peas are doing great, but it is starting to get a little bit hot for those. So, you know, the usual stuff with the gardens going pretty well. I was pretty excited about making videos about the garden this year. I did some test runs on some videos, and they did not go well. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this terrarium project, so I'll do that. Those didn't go well either, so I don't know. I think this channel is basically turning into, unless I'm building a new aquascape or something, people just don't seem to really care all that much. So I'm going to continue doing the plant encyclopedia videos and that kind of stuff, and doing the live streams and blah, blah, blah. You know, I don't know. Why is it a YouTube channel update? How did that turn into that? I don't know, but that's how my brain worked and I got there. But today's topic, one of the things that we wanted to talk about, let's get to our YouTube members real quick. Let's update that and the Patreon while I talk about what is going on with today's video. What are we doing? So Patreon numbers, 237. And it looks like YouTube membership went down again. So we're back down to 96. And on the Patreon and YouTube members, I know that there's a lot of confusion out there in the world. People are like, I don't understand what that's all about. I think the reality is that if we're all reliant on just money off of what YouTube is going to pay out, you start to go look at, I think, what is it? Hold on. How much? is uploaded to YouTube every minute. It's just something crazy. Total number of people who use YouTube is 1.3 billion. 300 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. So when you start to like boil down numbers like that, you start to realize that YouTube is distributing this insane amount of video and stuff. They're not going to be paying out that much, right? And thanks to people on the Patreon and the YouTube members, we've been able to keep things going here to the best of my ability within maintaining the budget. I can't go crazy on the budget because our budget's not crazy big. But thanks to all the people supporting and that kind of stuff, it's continued to move forward. So we're going to keep moving forward. Sometimes it feels like I'm moving forward at a snail's pace, but that's life, you know? So we're going to keep doing what we're doing. Somebody asked, what would it take for me to just do, content creation full time? And I think, honestly, if the combined of these numbers got up to 1,000, I think it would be the time that I would stop doing all the other jobs I still have to do, even though there's a pandemic. Yeah, pandemic is driving me nuts, I have to admit, on a personal level. All right, so what we're doing today is we're going to look at a slideshow. Because the other day we got lucky and a family member of ours who is in our pandemic social circle. Can I make this? Oh, can I make it? Hold on, let me change this a little bit. I don't know what happened with the aspect ratio changed there. I think I can still stretch. Oh, that's why it does that. Okay. So I can stretch it out a little bit so it makes more sense. There we go. A family member, basically Olivia's grandma and grandpa hooked us up with some zoo tickets, so we all got an opportunity to go to the Point Defiance Zoo in North Tacoma, near where I live. Although it does, strangely enough, take like a half an hour to drive there. I thought that's super weird, but it's really not that far away, but it takes like a half an hour to drive. Or like 26 minutes or something. And I do have to admit, I think my review of how the zoo is operating right now, they are doing a fantastic job. You literally have to show up at the time that you're supposed to be there. Everybody's socially distant in line. It's all been marked out. There's really not that much of a question about it. Plenty of signage instructing people what to do. Here's what you're doing now. Here's what you're getting ready to go in. There's no more paper tickets. Everything is digital. So there's no contact with the people that work there. They did a great job. I think they really did a great job. I was honestly inspired by most of the people, if not all of the people that were there, just being cognizant of not coming in contact with other people and potentially spreading a virus around. It worked really well. Most everything that they had put in was a system that was working really well. The first thought that came to my mind is that every year, every single zoo, every single aquarium, every single chance and opportunity location is having a fundraising drive. They need donations. They need more funding. They need this. And that's on a regular years. You know what I'm saying? That's on regular years where people are not, struggling with the economic impact of the COVID-19 crisis. Look at that. I almost sounded half-assed professional there for a second. I better throw an ass in the live stream so we can get demonetized while we're here. But a lot of people under the stress of this, of the coronavirus outbreak, the pandemic that we're dealing with, I don't know that those donations are going to be coming in strong this year. Coupled with the fact that there's not that many people able to go to the zoo right now. I'm going to tell you, there's no crowds. They're not selling hot dogs. They're not selling pop and drinks. And they did have some of the store that you could buy some toys and stuff set up outside. So they had some of the stands out there set up outside so you could buy some plush toys or whatever. Yeah, they're not going to be having the level of income just from ticket sales and stuff that they would normally have, on top of the fact that they're not going to have very many charitable contributions, which is really making me wonder, from just me being a person's standpoint of like, but I love going to the zoo. I love getting a chance to see animals, fish, plants, things like that I'm not able to normally see on a daily basis. You know, I'm not going to be able to see a tiger, you know, at any other location. And if I do see a tiger at some other location, there's likely some hillbillies in charge of that whole deal, and I probably would want to get out of there before I get murdered, right? So that's been kind of weighing on my mind a little bit about, you know, how enjoyable our visit was. It had been a while since I've been to one of them. And, yeah, I'm really wondering, like, how long these zoos are actually going to be able to exist. And I'm sure there's some hyper-humanitarians out there that would be like, oh, well, zoos suck and they shouldn't exist anyhow. I mean, I get it. If you've been to Point Defiance Zoo, most of the cages and environments that these animals are held in are pretty good. They're pretty nice. And it's most of the Point Defiance Zoo is aquarium stuff now. They did have an elephant. I believe they have a couple of elephants. They had 2 different tigers, which I believe that they had those tigers as a breeding program, I think. But most everything else was either like a tropical fish or like endemic to the area that we live in. So like this environment here. So, you know, wolves and, you know, a bunch of cool stuff. Now, be warned, I didn't take a ton of pictures while I was out there, and I just selected some of the few that I had time to edit that I thought would be pretty cool for this live stream. This flower right here, I've never really seen this flower in anybody's yard. I haven't seen this flower out in the woods. I haven't seen this flower around. Naturally, I'm going to take a picture of it. You guys, a lot of people that follow me like on Instagram and stuff like that would know that honestly, if there was a job where I could fly around the world and just take pictures of wildflowers, I would consider that as a part of my career if that was something I could do. Still don't think I'm quite a good enough photographer to even entertain being interviewed for that job, so I will throw that caveat in there that could be a problem. But yeah, I didn't identify what this flower is, and that kind of pissed me off. But really cool flower. I was glad to check it out. This is my daughter's tiny baby hand, and this was the biggest inconvenience of going to the zoo, is trying to make sure that the micro baby does not grab every single thing around. That was the one inconvenient thing, which I think is probably close to what I would have normally had to deal with anyhow, having been at the zoo. This is a local tree, which name escapes me right now. I've seen this a million times, and I don't remember the name of it, like an idiot. I probably should have written some of this stuff down so it would be easier to remember what it is. I just really liked the berries. The arrangement was looking nice, and I figured I would snap a shot. Okay, so let's get into some of the aquariums. Some of the aquariums here are quite interesting. They're well built. The layout is really nice because you're able to see things from the top, you're able to see things from the middle, and you're able to see things from down below, and you kind of move through the building in that way. It really is a great opportunity for kids and adults to go check out some of the critters in here. As you can see, there's these wacky tunas swimming around in the back, and this actually is a nurse shark. So you realistically not a shark that would harm people. As you can see, that's not a man-eater mouth. You know what I'm saying? But as I was mentioning, there's a lot of good opportunity for people at an aquarium like this to go really kind of experience from a lot of the angles, which I think is pretty important as far as my experience from going to an aquarium or a zoo. That those are the three elements that I like to see. If there's anything else other than that, that is all just frosting or whatever. That doesn't really matter that much to me. I honestly feel like I'm glad that the touch exhibits were closed, mainly just because I feel like the touching sea urchins and all that kind of stuff that they have there, that while it might not be dangerous, I feel like it's a cesspool of just bad idea. And I might be wrong in that assessment, but it's just literally like, it's how I feel about them, where I'm like, I don't know if I want my daughter reaching in there. This water's not filtered. This isn't clean. There's no way that this is clean. Like before a pandemic. And I will say, before the pandemic, we went to this little water park thing that was for the kids. And I think we walked out of there with the flu, I think we were there for 2 hours and just caught the flu while we were there, But it is what it is. Yeah, these nurse sharks here are really enjoyable. This is a reef shark, I believe. These are the ones that you want to watch out for if you don't want to get bit by a shark. These are ones that you would like to watch out for. They're a little bit squirrely. I wish I could have gotten some video of them. I didn't. We didn't have a whole lot of time to stop and take pictures of stuff. So I realized that my little photography slideshow here isn't necessarily the greatest slideshow of exactly everything that goes on at the zoo. And that's mainly because of the social distancing and stuff, means that you can't really be hanging around an area because the next group is kind of behind you. So you're sort of just moving around the park, and you can't just go backwards. You have to go in one direction. So whenever I kind of thought of oh wow, I should have gotten a picture of this thing, it's like, oh crap, I can't go back. Okay, well, next time I'll be back, and I'll have forgotten by then. I'm 100% sure. It's Nature Man says that his super chat is broken. I don't know what's up with that. I don't know how to fix it. When super chat gets broken, I don't know how to fix it. Jessica Taylor says cesspool of bad ideas. That describes 2020 pretty well. Yeah, I think it does. I think it pretty well describes the year 2020 for sure. It just in a nutshell. Jerry Cook says, even though I have many leather-bound books in my... Oh, sorry. I have to say it in Ron Burgundy. Even though I have many leather-bound books and my home smells of rich mahogany, at the moment, I am not able to spend a lot of money on a light. Your thoughts on the new Nicru lights? If you don't have a lot of money to spend on a light, I would first and foremost look on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, what's in your area. I would check the used stuff first. I know that there's a pandemic, and you're going to have to socially distance purchase things and probably wipe them off with a sanitizing wipe or whatever to not, buy something from somebody and rub it all over your face 5 seconds later. But that is my first inclination. My very first inclination is somebody's probably selling something that in your neck of the woods, or maybe not, that could be worthwhile. The Nicru lights, I feel like, are just a bad long-term... I feel like they're just a bad long-term investment. Um, you know, like it's not going to do a great job growing plants. I feel like it's a good light if you had like a fish only aquarium and you just wanted to see in your tank and see what's going on with your fish. How much are these things right now? So let's put this into a little bit of perspective. Okay, so let's say we want the 36 to 48 inch Nicru classic LED plus planted aquarium light. Okay, so this is the right one, apparently, I think. I haven't looked through this stuff in a long time. Okay, so that's $50 American. And let's go to the Home Depot. Why not? They've never sponsored this channel, although I would be down with a Home Depot sponsorship. Where are you at, Home Depot? Send me some tools or something. Let's go to the Home Depot, and we will find ourselves a T5 light fixture. So a T5 light fixture at the Home Depot right now. Let's go with under cabinet lights. So 2 T5 light fixture, sort of regardless of the length, huh? Let's see. Oh, we don't want the, no, we don't want the under cabinet. We want, let's go back. Commercial lighting, high bay. You have to find a comparable price here. Or a comparable, because we don't want the 4 bulb one. You'd want the 2 bulb one. Where's just the regular T5? Home Depot's website is just ridiculous. Oh, here's the fancy outdoor. Here's a fancy one. This one's like shipped to store. Oh, wow. This website is like super difficult to navigate today. I don't know why. T5s are super confusing, apparently. I just want the 2 bulb T5 light. It's just a regular one that I go in there and I buy off the shelf. And I want to be able to give you a actual price. Light. T5 light fixture. There. We have to look it up again, I guess. Do we want commercial lighting? Is that what they want us to click on? Oh, that doesn't work either. But I don't want to like misquote when I'm making a point. So let's find this thing real quick. There's a 2-light T5 fixture. I've bought it there a bunch of times. It's like $28, I think, or something like that. I don't know. Let's say you go to the Home Depot or whatever hardware store you want to go to. You buy yourself a T5 light fixture, which in my experience are about $40. You can buy, oftentimes they come with daylight bulbs in them, which are going to be sufficient for most likely what people are going to do. You can buy T5 specialty bulbs, but I would just buy something that is 6,500 Kelvin. Oh, why don't I just go to Amazon and find a T5 fixture on there? Well, we are an Amazon affiliate, so I might as well give you guys Amazon links, right? Oh, I need to add this to the cart because I need to buy this at some point in time. All right, let's see. Amazon T5 light fixture. Oh, here's a 4 bulb one that's $58. We want like a 2 bulb one that's reasonable. Yeah, here we go. Here's one that's designed to go over a very moist area. It is $39.99. I don't know if it comes with bulbs. Copy. Comes with 2 6500K bulbs that will grow most aquarium plants. Oh my God, there we go. We figured it out. Okay. Here is the link. By the way, we're an Amazon affiliate. If you guys click through and go through and buy stuff, it gives us credit. It doesn't cost you any more, blah, blah, blah. Federal Trade Commission requires me to have mentioned that at some point in time during the video. So I'm doing that right now because the year 2020 is just full of surprises. Like having to tell people everything that's constantly going on because people feel like if you don't tell them, they don't know, and then they feel like they've been taken advantage of, even though the price is no different or anything like that. Okay, so that light fixture is $39.99 where I'm at. I don't have a clue when you click on it what the price is going to show up in your end, but it would be really easy to find a dual T5 fixture like that with the reflector on the back of it that's designed to be over a moist area. It comes with the two 6500K bulbs for $40. That thing is going to last you a year before you need to replace the bulbs. And on top of that, you'll be able to use that light some other day. Or you could buy LED bulbs that you could put in there at some point in time. Texas Andy says, when I was on a budget for lights, I got a 4-foot sisal strip 6500K LED shop lights, and they grow plants great. Yeah, you could swap the bulbs out to LED bulbs that actually just clip right in there. And there you go. So, I mean, if you're going to spend the $50, I would spend $40 on something that is usable in the future also. Like that light fixture, maybe a year from now, you're like, I want to spend $200 on some lights. I want to get some fancy lights because I love this hobby and it's something I still want to do. You could take that light and put it out in your garage and it would light up your garage or whatever. Yeah. Zen Ginger says, just my experience, my Nikru grows plants on a 20 long and a 40 breeder. Had them over a year, still bright and plants growing, for the record. Yeah, so maybe the Nikru lights are super good. In my experience, their build quality is so crappy, I just wouldn't spend money on them. But that's my personal assessment. I don't know. Maybe they're super good now. I don't know. Maybe the build quality is dope and they're like waterproof and all the parts in it don't fall apart and that kind of stuff. Maybe they're great. But my experience was terrible, and I can't recommend it to anybody because of that experience. So, I mean, and I don't see myself buying some to test them. Personally, I don't. If somebody wants to make a testing video, I'll share that video out. If somebody makes a comprehensive I tested this light video, I'll share that out. How about that? I guess depending on who made it. Right? Right. Okay. So back to my weird zoo talk here. I'm a little bit concerned that we're not going to be able to go out and see sharks like this. We got a $5 super chat from Big D Smoke, says his is working. It's Nature Man got his to work. He got a super chat to work, and there's no message or question on it. So maybe it was just inspiring people to use the super chat button, which, hey, you know, I'm all for it if it's fan motivated, right? Alyssa caught her fish. Okay, cool. Anyhow, I do have concerns that zoos just aren't going to exist anymore. I feel, from my own personal standpoint, I think there's going to be a lot of people contributing to keep, you know, Point Defiance Zoo open, Woodland Park Zoo. I can't think of any of the other zoos in Washington State, but those two specifically, I think would stay open. But I'm really worried about a lot of the zoos, like on the cusp. You know, you're around areas that maybe don't have a lot of people donating to them, or you know, local levies that help keep those kinds of business. You know, I guess they are a business, but they're not nonprofit, I guess. I know a lot of areas don't think that, wow, we should put tax money into the zoo, but I personally think, actually, I don't really know what I personally think, whether it should be tax money or not. But if it's a nonprofit and it's a legitimate not-for-profit, yes. If it's a business and, you know, there's some weirdo taking home $12 million a year to just own a zoo. Maybe not. Maybe not. So maybe that's the change we'll start to see in the future. I don't know. Super excited. Working from home today and get to watch live. Just got the notification. What's up, Will? Thanks for watching. Yeah, and by the way, you guys know that these videos go unlisted now. So I can just kind of go fast and loose and we can talk about whatever. That is my format now. So if you don't have the link to it, you're not going to be able to find it later on. So you have to have, you know, notifications or whatever turned on, or wherever it got shared to. It's not going to show up in your feed, and it's not going to show up on my channel, but it does still exist. So if you want to go back and watch them later, if you just save the link, you'll be able to do that. If not, don't worry. I'm always back on Mondays and Fridays doing a live show. And that's just where we're at now. G-Bear says the Bronx Zoo opens today. Wow, that's awesome. I'm telling you, I love going to the zoo. I kind of want to go back so I can go take some more pictures of fish and stuff. But this is the most important fish that was on the trip. And people keep wondering, how big is Olivia these days? That's how big she is now. So this is her when she was a peanut. She's still a peanut to me. But that's how big Olivia is now. And she is a delightful child, I have to tell you. Vicky and I are very lucky to have a beautiful, healthy daughter who is now to the point where she's connecting words together and making sentences and saying stuff to people. And yeah, it's pretty good. And yeah, I'm gonna keep being her dad. You know, that's like something that's something that I'm gonna keep doing. I'm very invested in that. That's something I'm very invested in, is being Olivia's dad. So I'm gonna keep doing that. I don't know if that is at all intriguing to you guys or not, but just to let you know, I'm gonna keep being Olivia's dad. That's kind of my thing. And as you can see, she's still below the 2-year mark, so they're not really enforcing trying to get them to wear a mask. It just, overall, the science is like kids that are under 2 are generally not going to be able to keep it on very well. So you're just going to end up battling them more than it is just to carry them around and make sure they aren't licking zoo exhibits and stuff, you know? So yeah, she's pretty fantastic, I have to say. Michael Sarr with a $5 super chat says, "My cat's breath smells like cat food." And I think I'm supposed to say that like Ralphie? What is it? Is it Ralphie from The Simpsons? Ralphie from The Simpsons, right? Is that Ralphie? I think. Yeah, it's Ralph Wiggum. Ralph Wiggum, the chief of police's son, who's less than bright, says, "My cat's breath smells like cat food." I don't know how to do his voice. I haven't watched The Simpsons in such a long time. We have like 9 billion episodes of that show at this point, and I just don't even just not even interested. That's literally one of those things that is brilliant and super a fantastic show and everything. But I literally got to the point where it's just like, I don't want to watch this anymore. It exists. It exists that there can become a point where you're just like, yep. It's just the same old format. Okay, you know. But anyhow, moving on from my lovely daughter, which I need to push onto this button. There we go. Now, this is, I was trying to figure out exactly what fish this is. So this is in the rockfish exhibit, and I'm pretty sure that this is a rockfish. But somebody's probably going to tell me that I'm wrong. So I don't want to say that this is a rockfish and be wrong. So we'll just move on. Now, this shark, I have to admit, was moving around at an epic pace. The leopard shark moving around at an epic pace was doing a loop-de-loop in this tank. And I have to say, I think some of this kelp is real in here. Even though I know that a lot of it's fake, I think some of it's actually real. I'm not 100% sure. They had it weighted down like they wanted it to stay there, but it wasn't weighted down like in the fashion that all of the fake kelp displays that I've seen. And I was thinking, like, wait a minute, leopard shark, what's it doing in this tank? That's a freshwater fish, or not a freshwater fish, sorry, a tropical water fish. But I realized, like, this is kind of almost a tropical setting realistically. If this water was at, like, 68 degrees or something like that, because that would be fine for the leopard shark, right? Because we want, hold on, leopard shark temp water. Because I was trying to figure out, because they move around quite a bit. I've been... What? That was weird. Okay. Yeah, and this is what I was trying to figure out just a little while ago, because they move up and down the Pacific coast in North America, so they could actually just be with our kelp in a tank that was, just slightly warmer than, and it didn't need to be in a tropical tank. They could literally be in, a temperate tank. I guess temperate's probably the better way to put it. So we could actually have some of our temperate kelp in the water here if they were actually harvesting it. And I was kind of intrigued by that. And here's the weird thing, is that we don't have any, there's like nobody working at the zoo. So there wasn't really any people there to be like, hey man, I got me a question. Which I normally would have asked. I would have been like, hey, what's the temperature on this tank? And how did we get this fish in there? And what's going on? Which probably is almost always like super annoying, realistically. Let's see who's ringing the doorbell. Somebody's ringing the doorbell. Hold on. Oh, somebody just dropped off. Looks like a work package for Victoria. Anyhow, and I realized there wasn't really anybody working at the zoo, so I couldn't ask the normal people that were there. And realized that the leopard shark can go all the way up and down the coast. It goes all the way from Mexico all the way up to Oregon and whatnot. And so it has plenty of range to be able to do our kelp there, which I thought was cool, And I thought that was just like a great part of the display. Now this little buster, I have no idea who this was, but I have to say my grandma or my mom was like, you have to get a picture of this fish. So I do look forward to if anybody can identify this guy, that would be good. And this is an actual rockfish. I am very familiar with these. This would be a local installation in the zoo here, in the aquarium, some of the local tanks. Now, this fish, I wouldn't say is locally endemic. It's not local at all, even though we do have our own issues with bears around here. Not so much here in the city of Tacoma, but, Washington State. But this bear, I have to tell you guys, this is the one exhibit that I stopped in at that I wasn't feeling so bright and shiny about. I wasn't feeling so bright and cheery. Not to say that this bear is unhealthy or was bad off or anything like that. This bear is really, really exceptionally old. And I'm not going to say he's like skin and bones or anything like that, but this is just a really elderly polar bear. And I don't know if they've had this polar bear for the extent of its life, and that's why it's so old, or if they got it from somewhere that it needed to, it was coming to the zoo because it was not cared for. I don't really know the story behind this one. I was looking around for the plaques to see or hear like what's up with this bear, but this is just a really old polar bear, and you can just see the kind of wasting away, and just the elderly nature of this bear is that, like, I don't think this bear would be making it in the wild. To be 100% honest with you, this bear, in my opinion, in my observation, wouldn't be surviving if it wasn't in a zoo. So this is the one thing that I did. This is the one display that I had a little bit of, it was just kind of like, oh, it was just sad. It was kind of just like, wow, this bear's really on its way out. But I think that if Olivia was a couple years older, I think that if I think that if I was a couple years older, I would realistically, or if Olivia was a couple years older, we could have honestly had a good, strong conversation about how, like, we all die and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. But I really feel like I was just kind of isolated in my thought of dealing with that, because there wasn't really anybody to communicate it with. And it's not like it's not really like a teaching moment for my daughter. It was just kind of like, I wonder what's going on with this bear being so old. But it was a really elderly bear, and it just was, I guess, just to say that, like, there was more emotion to going to the zoo than just like, ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that? And maybe that's just like a little bit of my own takeaway in the year 2020, while we have all this weird pandemic nonsense going on. It's not like I'm going to be able to pass on very many good emotional things this year as far as like videos go, because I'm not really supposed to be like traveling and just making videos, So we'll see what happens. I don't know. But it was weird. It was weird to me. I don't know. Trying to read the chat. People are talking about other YouTube channels and something going on. Primetime did a little video on them, and people wrote comments in their experience as well to check out before we pull the trigger. What are we talking about? Wasn't really trying to grow plants like crazy. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Chevy Fish was looking at those lights. How long have you had them? What plants do you grow, and what size tank is it on? Oh, you guys are still talking about lights. I really like the Higer light. Let's see how much that thing is. You guys are talking about the lights, so let's see which one that one is. I wonder if it's just rebranded. I wonder if it's actually just a rebranded light. But the reality to me is that if we're talking about plant lights and you're trying to be super cheap, there isn't one. I don't see one on Amazon. Full spectrum aquarium light. Well, there we go. I just had to re-look it up. Oh, they don't have. Oh, here's one. Yeah, that one's $40 too. So the IP68, that's not good. I mean, that just means that the light spectrum accuracy is only 68 out of 100. So this is an aperture light right here. This little aperture light. It has bad color accuracy, and I think it's IP89. Right? So this one's IP68 was probably, I would say, may or may not be a little bit off from exactly what you want it to be, but it sounds like some people are stoked for it. So the 48-inch one is $60. So, and it looks like it has a cheap timer built into it. And what else can you do? It has a timer. for on and off. And cycle mode color. Oh, so there's a ramp up and a ramp down. Okay, that's pretty good. Looks like the wavelengths are... Oh, see, that's the weird thing. Like, if your light is only IP68, it's kind of weird to say that you actually have a specific color rendering on like what nanometers that the light is actually putting out, even though your accuracy is so far off. I don't know that it would actually be putting out what it says it's putting out. I don't know. I'd have to look into it. I haven't really messed with this one other than just my initial impression is I would probably stick to my previous advice and going with something like T5s is that is an established technology. That is an established technology that, you know, the manufacturing process, the testing process, the fact that people have been using it for an extremely long number of years. I would just go with the time-tested kind of thing versus the new to the scene kind of stuff that's like, oh, we're just rebranding something and reselling it. But as Brian says, personally, I wouldn't buy anything other than the Fluval 3. I personally wouldn't invest my money in something that isn't the quality of the Fluval 3.0. There are definitely other lights that are at that quality level. They're going to be fairly comparable in price, but my personal stance these days is like dollar per gallon sale is killing the hobby. Cheap import stuff is killing the hobby. People getting collector-itis, more and more tanks is killing the hobby. That's just kind of my personal stance. That's just kind of my personal stance and my personal viewpoint of, you know, people really reaching a lot of people are really reaching a point in the hobby that is unsustainable, and they're utilizing super cheap equipment from overseas and super cheap manufacturing of kind of crappy stuff in order to do that. You know, they've got the volume going on without any of the quality going on. And that's just kind of my personal stance. Like, I'm not mad at somebody if they want to have 90 aquariums in their house. Feel free. But I do have to say, from like my personal standpoint, like if you have 90 aquariums in your house and the floor's all rotted and you haven't vacuumed and you have dirty dishes all over the sink and your bathroom is dirty and gross, and it's pretty clear that you need to like, you know, paint the walls and like replace a couch that has holes in it and stuff like that. Like, I feel like your priorities are just like all messed up and not in the right place. I feel like there's definitely a balance between excess volume and excess quality. I feel like there's a balance between the two and how to live a life. You know, I know a guy who's got so many tanks they're outside, but he doesn't have any clean laundry, you know, ever. So it's, you know, I think that kind of stuff is definitely happening in this hobby. And I think there's a lot of people that are normalized, or at least attempting to normalize that behavior. And I just don't think it's good for the hobby. I don't think it's good for the animals. And I don't think it's good for the humans. You know, I don't think it's good for the fish. I don't think it's good for the shrimp, whatever. And I'm constantly inundated with people like wanting to build a rack of tanks and a rack of tanks over here, and then another way to build a new rack of tanks. And you guys know I've built a bunch of racks of tanks. I will be building more of them. I typically do that for businesses that have employees, you know, in order to maintain all that kind of stuff. This plant right here just caught my eye. And I told you guys earlier, I love taking pictures of flowers. I don't know. Something about it. I just love to do it. So whenever I see a cool flower, I will take a picture of it, and it will make its way into my photo reel, just like these flowers here. Now, I don't know. Haven't gone through that little set list of pictures that I edited. I do realize it wasn't as exciting and thrilling as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be fun to share some stuff, but it wasn't that exciting. It wasn't that thrilling. So let's just lament a little bit and answer some questions from the chat. Chevy Fish, I'm needing a light on 3 of my shrimp tanks with Java moss and duckweed. Simple basic light. That's all I would do. Wouldn't get anything fancy for some little shrimp tanks. Fish Tank Barn says, yep, you reach a point of balance. I've been there. There definitely is a limit. I would have 100 tanks without, I wouldn't have 100 tanks without automation. Yeah, I mean, you got to have things automated. Once you get to a certain point, like one person can't maintain all that stuff. And I also think that, like, there are a lot of aspects to life that I think I've noticed in this hobby are missing from a lot of people's lives. But I think especially... I've especially noticed it with, I've gone to a lot of fish keepers' houses and a lot of fish keeper places and stuff like that, and I've noticed it at maybe a higher percentage than what I would normally expect from just meeting people and going to their place, It's Nature Man. After I got laid off work, I started going through my house like the Hotel Impossible guy. I am down to 4 tanks. It does make sense, It makes sense to kind of downsize that stuff, but I'm going through my own personal battle with that kind of stuff of downsizing, Let's see here. Let me see if I got any questions in the chat. Oh no, build quality still not wonderful. Just meant they work all right for the price. I bought Finex ones after that, but twice the price. Okay, so that's the follow up on the NICRU lights. Texas Annie says I'd go beams work over NICRU. I've dropped it in the water and it still works great. Well, that's actually a good point to know. I didn't realize that the beams works now are a little bit waterproof. Maybe they're water resistant. Maybe they're waterproof. Who knows? Let's see. My original super chat was about the zoo. I went to the Columbus Zoo a week ago, and it was like there was no pandemic, although there was a sign at the back of the zoo, if you are sick, go home. I don't really know what to tell people about what is going on with the pandemic stuff and the rest of the U.S. I feel like the rest of the U.S. looks at the West Coast the same way that we look at them. If you were to look up Seattle and Portland in the news, there's riots. The whole town is on fire. Everything is being burned down because of political demonstrations that are going on, which are ostensibly 99% nonviolent protests. Almost all of the complaints lodged against, these violent protesters that have been arrested were graffiti and spray painting stuff and just general crap like that. And while I'm not somebody who condones graffiti and that kind of thing, I think beating somebody and tear gassing them and arresting them with a hood over their head, but not actually arresting them, just kidnapping them and all this kind of crazy stuff that's going on, is bizarro to me. And I don't know, I've had my I've had my fair share of businesses that got, spray painted and that kind of stuff. We just painted over it and moved on. So I don't know what to tell people. I don't think that's violent, but whatever. And realistically, when I look at the rest of the country, there's just huge swaths of the country that are not taking this pandemic seriously. I think it's the same thing. I think it's the same thing where people are looking at the West Coast and going like, oh my God, it's so crazy out there. The riots and the Antifas, they're just getting everybody. When the reality is, like, there's a huge mix of cultures out here, and everything's fine. But then I get reports from, like right there of going to the zoo, and everybody was just acting like everything's normal. Nobody's like wearing a mask. Nobody's social distancing. Nobody's trying to not share the virus around. And then we see that the virus caseload just keeps going up. And by the way, if anybody out there is like, this virus isn't real, I don't have time for you, dude. Like, I just don't. I really don't. I don't have time for that. It is a nonsensical conversation to get in with anybody. Brian says, I have a couple of questions about setting up planted tanks. I want to move away from breeding fish and shrimp and strictly into full planted and light fish. What would you set up right now? Well, I just got done setting up a new 120-gallon tank. I've got a bunch of plants in that were sponsored by the Aquarium Co-op. So those have been scaped in and planted, and I filmed all that. And now I'm filming the progress of them and stuff, and there'll be a whole video about that. But basically, most of my setups these days are, I find an interesting rock. I already know the substrates I'm going to use. I use ADA Amazonia, Fluval Stratum, and some other third one, which might be some fluorite black sand. It might be some Brightwell. I still haven't got any of that Landon in yet. I am interested to try some of that, but pretty basic setups where I find an interesting rock, get the substrate in there, and start growing the plants. That's pretty much the plain and simple thing, is just like get the tank set up, get it balanced, get it cycled, start growing plants, see how well they're growing and what areas they're doing and things that I got to change and adapt. I mean, I just oversimplify it. That's basically what it is. My mixture of scaping style is sort of Iwagumi-ish and Dutch blended together. That's kind of my style. So like the Dutch European and the Iwagumi styles mixed together is kind of what I do, is what I like to do. I used to do a lot of driftwood and stuff like that. I don't do that much anymore, although I do still very much enjoy driftwood and that kinds of things. But that's kind of where I'm at right now as far as my style goes. Decent lights, CO2, whatever comprehensive fertilizer you like. I happen to like the Easy Green from Aquarium Co-op, but feel free to use whatever fertilizer you like, and just keep it pretty basic. But the follow-up was, should I go acrylic with a sump, or would a canister be okay? Also, what's your preference on CO2? I run my tanks on sumps. Are canisters okay? Yeah, of course. Hang-on back filters are okay. Sponge filters are okay. Chandra Sakar is saying, why do some people hate them for aquariums? On the canister filters, some people don't like them because they're more often than not, they're cheaply made. Realistically, and if they're not cheaply made, they're pretty expensive. You know what I mean? You're talking about like just off the top of my head, like a FX5 or something like that is like $400, which when I get down to that point, I'm like, I would rather just run a sump, because typically you can, either find a used sump for cheap or even a brand new one. So those can't remember who makes the sumps that I use. Good thing they're branded because I forgot. But either way, the sumps that we bought were about $300. You know, they were like $300 new acrylic sumps. They were fine and dandy. They work well, and you know, I buy a good pump and a return, and it's just so many more things I can do with a sump versus a canister filter. But I did spend years and years and years and years running canister filters. I don't have any problem with canister filters as long as they're well built. I wonder if the Arena even exists anymore. That was always my favorite one. Let's see if those exist, like if you could buy one. Let's scroll up. Let's change this out. So let's go Arena canister filter. I wonder if they make these anymore, because I know that the company got bought. Yeah, it got bought. Ooh, I don't think they make these anymore. No, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing my old favorite ones were the Arena Fill Star. Now here's a canister filter, but I think this is just like the filter pads. Oh no, this might actually be the actual canister filter itself. Yeah, but I mean this one, the large one here. Let's see. These sellers go here. Yeah, $313. That's a fair bit. That's a fair bit of money for anybody, you know, when you think about it. And so what people are generally going to do is end up buying a really cheap canister filter. It's going to be difficult to maintain. It's going to be difficult to clean. It's going to be difficult to take apart. It's going to be difficult to move. It's going to have cheap parts, so it's probably going to leak at some point. Probably not right out the gate. Yeah, so here's the Fluval FX6 is $340. So I would honestly say I wouldn't buy the Arena for $300 when at least Fluval, you know, is covering these, you know, copy. And yeah, I've used these, the FX5 and the FX6. I've used those a bunch. They're pretty good. I would say that the probability on the FX6, FX5 line is probably where I would go if I was going to do a canister filter. Vince Olshove says API sells a Fill Star canister filter. I think that must be what they're calling it now. Let's see, Fill Star. That must be it. Fill Star, because I think it got bought by API. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be anybody shipping it on Amazon, selling it and shipping it on Amazon. So maybe it's supposed to be in store or something. I don't know. These companies are. There's so many companies out here just doing all sorts of bizarro nonsense, like, oh, you can only buy this in a store. I don't know why, but you know. Okay, so let's fix this. There's my chat. Okay, I was trying to figure out where my chat went. All right. My generic recommendation, if you keep a canister on a floor you care about, put it inside a tub or something from Streetwise. Yeah, I mean, that's you know, that's the reality is like, well, if I got a canister filter, then I got to put it down here. I used to put them into those blue recycling containers, like they're like that wide trash can. If you get the recycling container that's the big one, it normally has holes in the bottom of it to drain out whatever liquids get spilled into it. But the one that is in between that and the small one, so the medium one, I guess, doesn't have holes drilled in the bottom of them. I would put my canister filters in those things. Yeah, so I don't like that stuff. There's a bunch of downside, but I do like canister filters. I would say that I'd probably go with the Flu Vault if I was going to go with anything. But there's really no reason for me to, so I really wouldn't worry about it that much. Ryan Melling says 2 Penplax Cascade canisters on my Planet 75 gallon for 2 years now. Great canister filters, and the price is reasonable. I bet you're right. I bet you're 100% right. I have no reason to doubt you. I have no reason to doubt you, my guy. I don't know why I would doubt you. I don't. I don't doubt you. Let's see. I'm just wondering. I'm just interested in what the pricing is. That's like $150, but it's on sale for $75. That's weird. Why would it be? Why would it be on sale so much? But yeah, I imagine that this would work. I mean, it's a device that's going to pick up particulate out of the water. It's going to hold on to your biomedia and allow a boost to biological filtration. You know, I mean, it's a pretty simple process of what it's doing. You know, it's moving water around over the surface of what's growing bacteria on it. You're pulling particulate out of the water so that you can collect it and remove it to help keep the water clear and clean. It's just basically all that they're doing. So if they do that, you know, it's all good. George T says saying the coronavirus is fake is almost as ridiculous as saying it's 99% peaceful protests. It's literally every night there are fires, broken windows, violence. What do you expect the cops to do? While I don't know where George T is or who George T is or where he's getting his information from, the blanket statement of it's literally every night there are fires, broken windows, violence. What do you expect the cops to do? Kind of nonsensical. But, you know, if you are super enthusiastic about whether or not the protests are violent or not, I would recommend you to actually go down there, I guess, and talk to some of the people and see what's actually going on. Or, I don't know. I mean, you could be like the naval officer that went down to go find out what was going on, and you tried to talk to some of the federales that were there, and they beat him with billy clubs and sprayed him in the face with tear gas and pepper spray. So, you know, that's it. Kind of a thing. Zombie Drummer says, just here on YouTube, I download the live stream. Oh, Aquamain says, is your podcast on Apple Podcasts? It's not on Apple Podcasts, to my knowledge. I know that Alvin was posting it up on Podbean at one point. I don't know if Alvin's still doing that. Alvin was doing it, and I 100% appreciate him for doing it. I don't re-upload the live streams or anything like that. As I mentioned earlier, they go to unlisted, so if you want to download it, you can. You just basically have to have the link for it. So if you have notifications and stuff, you'll get the link, and you can download it later. I have a YouTube Premium account, so I can download basically anything off of YouTube if I want to watch it later. So, you know, it's up to you if you want to do that or not. It's not a sales pitch or anything, but I do like to be able to go back and forth and talk with people about things that are going on or not going on, you know. Oh, I can't do that anymore. Oh, well, either way. Try to click on a thing and it doesn't do that. Let's see. Oh, can't do that either. What is up with this new control panel thingy? Okay. Aquamain finally got my Aereo Q transition to my tank. the quingulare. Am I saying that right? Probably not. That is a really cool aerocalon, 100%. It's become like kind of that wildfire. People want to buy it. Plant. It definitely is out there getting sold for a lot of money. Definitely getting sold for a lot of money these days. So it's an interesting plant, but I would definitely watch out for fluctuations and that kind of stuff. Easy to lose a plant that's very expensive. I lost my aerocalon, the blood vomit kind. I got some from Tom Barr a while ago, and it was doing fine. Then it wasn't doing good, and it was getting overcrowded by all the other plants I had growing in there, so I actually moved it into some little glass jars, these little glass cups with the suction cups. I don't know what happened, but the suction cup fell down, plants got smushed, they ended up dying, so that sucks. But luckily it's just a plant, so not that big of a deal. Okay. Texas Andy Aquatic says, I know people hate on the Sun canister filter. Well, I think, I don't think people really like necessarily hate on the Sun canister filter. I think they hate on the fact that it's rebranded under a million different names, and there's just so many people reselling that. So it's not even, you don't even really know if you're getting the name. Maybe they swapped out some parts. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what happened. There's not a whole lot of regulation around those canister filters being made. So I think that's the problem. They're mass manufacturing a bunch of cheap aquarium filters, and they're rebranding the box over and over and over and over and over again. And it's sort of like, if you're willing to rebrand this box all the time, where else are you cutting corners? So I think that's probably the reality of why people are kind of hating on those Sun filters. In my experience, they've worked well until you service them a few times. So you open it up, you got to clean the filters out, you got to cut some new pads, put the new pads in there, and then eventually the seal fails, or it doesn't prime right anymore, or that kind of stuff, which kind of ties in with what I was talking about earlier with the NICRU lights, is that you're going to buy those super cheap lights. They're going to work for a while, and you're likely going to run into some kind of problem. So maybe they work well for 3 months. Maybe they work well for 2 months. Maybe they work well for 6 months. But then the reality is, like, they break. You have a problem. They got, like, burnout LEDs or something like that. And then there's really no, like, warranty at all or whatever, because the company doesn't really care about any of that. I was even surprised to find out that there was it's not a music engineering company, but it is a part that music engineers need. That I'm trying to explain this in kind of broad terms, but anyhow, if you're going to make music, you need this thing. It's an electronic device that helps with making and recording music. There we go. That's the easy way to explain it. And it costs a significant amount of money, like $500, right? And you would think that one of those companies that is very, very big deal would have, like, a lot of manufacturing, a lot of warranty replacement people, a lot of salespeople, a lot of all of that kind of stuff. You would think that the infrastructure of that business would be expansive. And as it turns out, they only have 7 employees. And you're like, there's only 7 people here handling all of this? And that's when the reality sets in of, like, you send them an email and they haven't gotten back to you in 3 weeks because there's literally, like, one person trying to email you back or something, and they haven't been able to figure out all of the other emails they got in that time frame, or they were just on vacation or something. You know what I mean? It's pretty striking to find that out these days, and I wouldn't be surprised if we found out that like NICRU or something like that only had a couple of people working with the company, and they just literally are kind of drop shipping and relabeling boxes. Basically, that's basically what their business is like, we buy this cheaply made stuff and they relabel it for us, and then we sell it to people, right? You're kind of like, how is this a business? How is this a job? How is this a thing? What kind of value are you bringing to the table? And, I might be a little bit critical about that kind of stuff, but I really don't feel like it's anybody bringing value to the table. It's literally just like, hey, I figured out a spot here where I could just take money from people and I don't have to do anything. You're like, oh, okay. I guess that exists. That's a long rant. That was pretty ranty about nonsense. Don't ever open the Sun or it starts leaking. I have a couple that have been running approximately 3 years. From Mr. Joel G all the way down to New Z. Joel G and New Z. Yeah, I think that's ultimately the problem. I think like whatever fancy term for the quality of the plastic and whatnot is not exactly the highest level, and it loses its structural integrity over time, and not the longest amount of time. Aquaman says, yeah, I want the blood vomit too. Really cool plant, I do have to admit. I'm kind of pissed that whole situation happened, but also at the same time, as I mentioned before, it's just plants and it's a drag, but I can get more plants and we'll grow them, and we'll grow them again. But I think there's a likelihood that I might end up swapping one of my tanks to just be aerocalin water, and that's really if the other plants can grow in the aerocalin water, cool. If not, tough, right? So I think I might be swapping a tank to do that. Yeah, scrolling. My generic recommendation. Oh yeah. I already read that. That Streetwise, your posts stand out to my eyes, even though your name's not green. I thought your name was green before, but maybe it's not. Maybe I was wrong. I don't know. Alana Suki says, when I was a teenager, I came home and saw my light fixture in the tank, just reached in and pulled it out. Didn't think about how bad that could have been until way later. I don't recommend people electrocuting themselves, but, 110 outlet in America, you reaching in there, you might get shocked, but you're not really in that big of a danger. It's going to hurt and it's going to scare you, but you're not in that big of a danger. In Europe, you guys got 220 coming out of the wall socket. Maybe a little more dangerous. But I wouldn't be that concerned. Now, I don't recommend people to electrocute themselves on purpose or anything like that, but I wouldn't be that worried about 110, especially it being on a breaker. As soon as it starts to draw amperage and electrocute you, it's just going to pop the breaker. So welcome to the year 2020, where we have safety protocols built into our electrical systems, which are very important for sustaining and maintaining human life as we move forward into hopefully the year 2021, right? Paula Kreinberg is here, says, late, up all night worrying about the Gestapo. That's a good point. As we mentioned a little bit about the protests earlier, it seems that we've had some some people that are critical of my assessment that they're 99% nonviolent, but I think we've pretty well documented that a lot of the violence has come from the not protesters, considering how many white supremacists and whatnot have been, arrested and charged with a lot of the crimes like burning the precinct in Minneapolis and whatnot is a good example that comes to mind. And also here in Western Washington and Seattle, turns out most of the interactions have been white supremacist groups coming in to instigate, which is very interesting. And you could look that up if you like. But unfortunately, we're seeing now that the federal government is sending out unidentified operatives funded by American tax dollars to just indiscriminately pick up and kidnap people off the street. It's very interesting. Very interesting and very Gestapo-esque, if you ask me. It's very much sounds kind of Third Reichish to me at this point. Fish Tank Barn says, I may or may not have broken a 400-watt heater in a sump and reached my hand into it and live to tell about it. Live to tell about it. Yeah, as I mentioned, if you have a decent breaker panel and somebody with half a brain installed your electrical in either the fish tank barn or your house, wherever you happen to be, you should be fine. Like I said, it may be uncomfortable. It's probably going to scare you, and you might hurt yourself. So it's definitely not a recommended experiment. But loss of life and that kind of stuff, you should be pretty well protected from. So, but yeah, I don't recommend doing that. I recommend unplugging it before you reach in your hand with any electrical. That's going to be important. Luckily, water's not a great conductor of electricity, even though we think it's like a wives' tale. It's like a myth that electricity it will travel through water, but it's a lot of resistance in water, it's not as conductive, that's for sure. And so oftentimes it will draw a lot of amperage and flip the breaker on your panel in whatever building has power going into it. From the outside looking in, both your protesters and cops have a propensity for acute violence. And the main problem with all that, people granting themselves judge, jury, and executioner rights. I wouldn't disagree with some of that assessment. Now, this is kind of a multifaceted thing that we were talking about on Discord, and I think people may or may not have been a little bit confused about it. I think people may or may not have been a little bit confused about it, and the reason why. So we're going to get a little bit off topic here, guys. We're not going to necessarily talk about fish tanks here for a minute. Now, the reason why people like me get upset at propaganda like the thin blue line, and that would be the reasoning that I would get upset by stuff like that, is first and foremost, you're desecrating the American flag. So you've created this black and white image of the American flag with a blue line through the middle of it, which is not what the American flag is supposed to be. So if we're on the basis of wanting to protect our American heritage and the flag and us being Americans and stuff, that imagery shouldn't exist in its own right. It also shouldn't be sold for profit. That is also not something that should be happening. Shouldn't be manufactured as a profit source. That is offensive to me. Secondly, the origin of where that has come from is it began in the middle 2005, 2004, somewhere around there. I believe it was the U.S. Marine Corps, but I might be a little bit not exact on my where this came from. But a group of U.S. military co-opted the Punisher's skull symbol, right? If anybody's familiar with comic books out there, the Punisher was a former Marine who came back to the United States after the Vietnam War. His family was killed, and then he goes on this superhero rampage of just murdering people. He wasn't Captain America because Captain America would catch people and prosecute them. He wasn't Spider-Man because Spider-Man would catch people and bring them in front of a judge. He wasn't Iron Man because Iron Man would catch people and bring them in front of a judge. He was the Punisher. It was his job to just show up and commit a bunch of murders, which, as far as my assessment goes, if you are a United States citizen, murdering people is illegal regardless of your position, whether you're in the military or in the police force or just standing in the road. Just deciding that you have figured out that somebody has done something bad and then you murder them, well, you were a murderer, right? And you've done something. If those people were murderers, you've done the exact same thing that they did. Now, The Punisher is a comic book. It's not real. It's fiction. It's not a document that is telling you about historical facts or whatnot. But Frank Castle is a crazy person in those books. He has gone crazy, and he's decided that murdering people is what he wants to do. Now, the United States Marine Corps has started spray painting this symbol all over the place, right? They started spray painting the symbol all over in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, just whatever Middle Eastern country they happen to be in, as a threat to the people there that we're here, we're Americans, and we're going to attack whoever. And I think that if I was involved in the military at the time, I would have hoped that somebody there would have had the wherewithal to say, don't do this. Anyhow, now that happens all the time. They spray paint that stuff all over the place. Those military guys come back from overseas. They get out of the military, and we have a very high percentage of ex-military guys in our police force, and they happen to bring that along with them. Now, just a skull is not a great thing for police officers to have around, so they added in this blue line and a background image of the stripes to give it the illusion that this is an American symbol, and the blue line represents the police force. Now, they started putting those skulls with the blue line all over their police cars and stuff, and as a matter of fact, you can still go out and find that there are police cars that have that skull from the Punisher, right, stuck to their police cruisers and whatnot. There was a bunch of backlash from the public, and most of those cars that got like the paint jobs and stuff with that stuff on it, they had to get repainted. But guess whose money this was the whole time? This is all taxpayer money going to paint, comic book, comic book symbols on police cars of people that are supposed to be very serious policing of a population, right? And people identified what was going on, and they stopped that from happening. So then what they did, instead of continuing with the skull, they just turned it into a black and white American flag with a blue line through the middle of it. And it's the same symbol. It's just, we're just co-opting this comic book imagery until people don't realize what it is anymore. And the unfortunate thing is that has I'm trying to think of what the word is behind it, but it has it brings to the table a group mentality that a lot of people they're already guilty. These people on the streets are already guilty, and I'm going to be like Frank Castle, right? You're not Frank Castle. It's not even a real person. I mean, you could at the very least find a real person to want to emulate, or if you wanted to emulate a comic book character, why not pick one of the comic book characters that at least values not murdering people? Like, I don't know, Batman? I mean, you could pick Batman, you could pick Aquaman, you could pick Captain America, you could pick Spider-Man, you could pick whatever, man. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on of comic book characters that don't brutally murder people, right? Why are they picking the one guy who specifically murders people with guns, by the way? Like, that's his whole thing. Why would you pick that one guy to represent your group that's supposed to be helping everybody and stopping crimes and making the streets safe for everybody, when the one thing you have representing you is the only tool that guy has is murdering people, right? That's why people are opposed to this ideal that, oh, the police are what? They're just going to be out here murdering people now? Like, oh, we just have Frank Castle running around in the streets doing whatever they want? That's not a good deal, and it's not a deal that I think that a majority of Americans or even a majority of the world at all would want to be involved in. And one of the things that's very interesting about the American population is it's 360 million people, 340 million people in the United States. If there's 5% of the population thinks that that's a good thing, suddenly you have 15 million people talking about how it's good, right? So if you have 15 million people talking about how something is rad, you will probably run into it. You will probably run into that messaging sounding like a good idea to you. And it becomes very easy to stop listening to the 200 or the 300 million other people who are saying, like, that's a bad idea because they don't know where the points connect, from the imagery that what people are standing behind. And the idea that we've invented a new flag for these group of Frank Castle wannabes, right? Now that is a problem. That is a monumental problem when the expectation is, oh, these guys are going to show up and be helpful. Maybe they're just going to shoot everybody. And if the fire department was doing this, do you think if the fire department was doing this and somebody came out to talk about it, that you go, well, the fire department's just showing up and suddenly they think they're Dr. Octopus and they just are trying to kill everybody at the burning building. Yeah, maybe we should do something about it? And people say, that's unpatriotic. Those firemen are just supposed to do what firemen are supposed to do. And the reality is the fire department doesn't carry around other imagery that they've all just decided to come up with out of just what, huh? It's weird how they all wear specifically fire department gear or specifically geared to the department that they work for, what truck that they drive in. I don't know. But, I think it would be pretty weird if the firemen were doing that, or if the paramedics all got together and decided, like, we're just going to do whatever we want, and we're going to got a whole plan. Aquaman says, pick Aquaman when choosing a superhero. I like it. I like that. That sounds pretty good. Anyhow, super ranty here at the end. I want to say thank you for everybody for coming out today. It's going to be time for me to go hang out with my daughter. Yeah. Oh, thanks for hitting the like button, guys. I don't know if that matters anymore because I don't really put these videos out into the public anymore. Doesn't really sit with my whole trajectory of really just being out in the public that much, I guess. I don't know. There it is. I had to click the button to find Big D Smoke. Thank you very much. It's Nature Man and Michael Sarr for your super chats today. We're having a good time out here. Why not? Let's have a good time, and let's keep up the good times. Let's keep the good times rolling. I want to say thanks to all of the Patreons for patronizing, YouTube members for memberizing. Is memberizing a word? I don't know. Probably not. Yeah, but anyhow, have a fun week. Edited content coming out tomorrow, and I'll be back on Friday for another live stream. But I hope everybody has a fun day out there in, I don't know,